I'll take him in and we'll start the search. Come on, let's go. Quick. Quick, quick, quick. Good boy. Yeah. 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 Yeah, get up.
How do you feel about the search of Rachelle's car?
I guess it's something I've been wanting to know for a really long time as to whether it was used or not, and I don't know whether it's going to give me those answers. And when I get the information, I don't know what I'll do with that either. But it will help us with the investigation because we want to know if it was the car that was down there and if it was used, because it paints part of the story and it'll fill in some of the blanks. I'm also kind of scared that it was used because I want to restore it, and I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, lots of mixed feelings.
Yes. Quick, quick, let's go. Quick, into bed. You're amazing, you know that? Hey? Good job. Well done. Excellent search.
I'm Ashlea Hansen, and you're listening to episode 12 of Dear Rachelle, a podcast by True Crime Australia. This is the untold story of Rachelle Childs, a 23-year-old who was brutally murdered. Her killer has never been caught. We're on Kristy's farm in the New England region of New South Wales. Search Dogs Sydney, a charity organisation specialising in search and recovery, are here too. Handlers Chris Darcy and Adele Jago are guiding their cadaver dogs, Rufus and Koa.
The dogs are trained to detect human remains scent. So human remains scent can be many things. It can be human bones. It can be different parts of human remains in different decomposition states. But overall, the dogs are trained to actually generalise all of those scents together to then understand what the human remains smell is to them. And then they go and figure out that from what they're already smelling within the environment.
We know that Rachelle's body is no longer in this car. So what kind of hope is there to find any evidence linked to the fact whether she was in the car or not at a period of time that was 23 years ago?
At this stage, we don't believe that there's been cadaver dogs actually searched the vehicle previously. Given the time frame, yes, it comes down to what actually did occur if she was transported in this vehicle. But if there was any fluids, if there was anything that she's given out, then potentially that could be the lead that's needed, and this become evidence once more. And until we either search the vehicle and find that out, we're never going to know. So that's what we're here today to do.
And so even 23 years later, there's still a chance that your dogs could detect if Rachelle's body had been put in this car.
There is that small percentage of chance that's occurred, and we base that on the fact that there's teams over in the United States that are still searching for Civil War graves. Now, those dogs are able to locate those Civil War graves in this day and age, and we use that training over here in Australia to assist us with our long-term missing persons cases.
Kristy is visibly anxious. Mindy, her best friend, is by her side as the dogs finish their final search of the vehicle. Both dogs went through the car separately twice.
So what was your take on that?
Confirmed. There is some sort of presence there.
Really?
You think?
He even spent a little bit more time inside in the back quarter, at the back seat. I think the vehicle does need to be further examined based on that information. Even though there was nothing clear, as soon as he came past the tyre, he gave me a strong head snap.
Chris was also interested to check out the Holden's petrol cap. He used a screwdriver to carefully open it, cautious not to contaminate it.
Let me just have a quick look at the fuel lid. I just want to see if it's been tested. No, if it's been tested.
How do you know?
Anyone see any fingerprint dust on that?
No.
We can't see any fingerprint dust there.
No. Surely they would have fingerprinted that.
It's pretty strong stuff back in the day. These days it might, but back in the day the technology wasn't as good that they used, and it really...
I remember it's hard to get off, like when you know it's there and you really have to scrub it off.
7 months on from the cadaver dog search, retired New South Wales detective and cold case expert Damian Loone visits Kristy's farm. This is the first time they've met in person since Damian volunteered to help on Rachelle's case.
Hello. How are you?
How are you?
I'm covered in dirt. I really
That's okay.
Thank you so much for coming over.
Oh, my pleasure.
Did you have a look at the car?
Not yet.
You're
going to show me?
Yep.
Come on. Wow. Wow, that's remarkable, isn't it? Oh, look, I can still see, the beautiful colour on it as well.
So we had cadaver dogs go through the car.
Yep.
Yeah, and they picked up a scent in the boot on that side. You want me to open the boot?
Yeah. So the dog went through here and he got a scent over here.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that this spare wheel used to make a lot of noise, like it used to bang around. So what the owner before Rachelle had done was shove a sheet down.
A white sheet?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that, because the sheet obviously wasn't in there later on, so I think that was the sheet that they found.
At the crime scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were trying to find, where that sheet could have come from, but I'm pretty sure that it came from the old owner. And I think it was just opportunistic to use the sheet that was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I always hoped that this car was never used. That it was, a different car down there, but yeah, I think all signs point to yes, it was this car.
Oh, highly likely.
Yeah.
But if there was an indication of something was in here, and that's a real strong evident point.
It didn't bark.
It's passive. Just sit down with it. Is it a passive
No,
dog?
he said that it was just the way they kept going back to that spot.
That might be their indicator. Yeah. That's the handler would know that.
Yeah.
He would know the demeanour of the dog.
Yeah.
And he would know that, well, that's what he's telling me. He's telling me that he's found something there and he's excited and his ears prick up and, they get attentive, and
Yeah.
other dogs are just passive. They just sit down, like drug dogs.
Okay, yeah.
So if you're at the airport, drug dog will just sit down beside you. You won't lick anything.
Sit next.
But this is really like, it's sort of like, all the cases, over the years I've worked on, not just homicides, but when you come to like a crime scene, and you'll see what I'm doing, I've got my hands in my pocket. It's just a natural instinct for me.
I don't touch anything.
I don't touch anything.
Yeah.
The cadaver dog search prompted forensic investigators to seize the petrol cap to test for fingerprints. But unfortunately, in April 2025, Kristy learned the testing yielded no results.
My name is Dr. Julian Parmigiani. I'm a retired forensic psychiatrist. I was engaged by the Crown Solicitor to help the coronial inquiry on the death of Rachelle Childs. I was firstly a pair of fresh eyes on all the evidence, but secondly I was also asked to help counsel formulate questions that would perhaps draw the information out of the many people who gave evidence and some of whom were suspects.
We're taking you back into Rachelle's inquest now. The barrister Dr. Parmigiani was referring to is Peter Singleton. What advice did you give to Peter Singleton about how he may be able to induce some kind of information from a suspect?
Again, my advice is that it's very hard. I said you're looking at someone with a reptilian brain, a predator, and to draw a predator out of its comfort zone is very difficult because being predators, they expect others to also be predators, and so they're very careful. I did a little drawing of a crocodile in a lake where you can only see the eyes coming out. I drew Peter on the side of the lake and say, well, it's your job to draw that crocodile out if you can.
You looked at Rachelle's case in detail. What do you believe happened to her?
Look, I think my conclusion was that was reached by many people. It was someone that she knew and someone who had lured her away from other people, so that to an isolated place, and then killed her. And the reasons may be a range of reasons, but I think, in my opinion, it was a plan that was formulated within days, not weeks or months, effected fairly quickly, but also in not a very organised way. So it was sloppy.
What do you think was the bait?
Well, it was something that she really wanted, and perhaps her defences were lowered.
Do you think it was a Walkinshaw?
The most likely thing was a Walkinshaw. Whether it was by a customer or a colleague, I don't know, but I think there there's enough evidence that she told others that she was going to drive a walk-in-shore on that weekend, and she was very excited about it.
What was the motivation of her murder, do you believe?
There are a number of possibilities. One of them might have been that the perpetrator felt disrespected by her in a day-to-day interaction. She might have said something that made him really angry. So there's a range of possibilities.
Let's just explore those possibilities. The first one you mentioned, that she may have made him angry.
Yes.
Were you aware of anything that may have made any of the men in her life angry?
Well, it could be something as banal as laughing at someone in their face while talking to someone else, and the subject of that feeling very disrespected and very angry.
With your insights and your expertise as a psychiatrist, how would that have been perceived by a man who may have had an interest in Rachelle?
Well, either a man who had an interest in Rachelle or a man who had, let's say, a negative attitude towards women. You know, to be offended by a group of people that you intensely dislike and feel you should be able to control would have been a great offence.
Let's explore the next theory, a sexual motivation. Take me into the mind of this possible attacker.
Someone who has developed a set of skills to get their prey. You know, may have done it in the past, one or more times, may have developed a modus operandi of luring the victim to a place using a subterfuge and then basically making sure that they are uninterrupted during the assault.
Can we step into the shoes of the killer? And who is this man? What is his thoughts and his motive?
At the time of the crime, we look at someone with, psychopathic personality. Basically doesn't care about the impact of his actions on others, people that he's prepared to kill, and the family and friends of the victim. He doesn't care about the consequences on them. He's only worried about himself. He sees himself as a predator, acting only in his own, to his own advantage. I'm sure there is something out there, or someone who knows something, that will bring essentially a monster to be arrested.
You've heard Kevin Steven Correll's alibi of the night Rachelle died, but the testimony you're about to hear casts doubts over his version of events. Alice, which isn't her real name, was Kevin's partner at the time. Their relationship was strained, and she'd recently asked him to move out of her home at Picton, but they were still seeing each other. These are actors voicing Alice and Peter Singleton's exchange at the inquest.
I want to ask you some questions about the week that Rachelle died. I think yesterday you said, and I think you mentioned it a moment ago, that sometime towards the beginning of that week, Kevin communicated something to you about the coming Thursday. Firstly, when was that communication, to the best of your present recollection?
Around the Sunday or the Monday.
And what did he say?
Something to the effect of, look, I won't be able to come meet you or have dinner on Thursday because I want to go and buy a birthday present for my son.
What did you say?
I said something like, well, I can come shopping, I'll come shopping.
And was that kind invitation accepted by Kevin?
No.
What did he say?
He said he wanted to do it on his own because he wanted to go and pick something special.
Peter Singleton wanted to know what Alice remembered about Kevin's behaviour around the time Rachelle died. But he was also keen to find out what she remembered about Kevin's general feelings about Rachelle over time.
One instance that sticks in my mind that I mentioned yesterday that I will mention again is that he commented about Rachelle's dress, and in particular an instance where she'd worn makeup and she didn't look like the Rachelle he knew, that she looked like someone else and she was unrecognisable and, she looked like a tart basically. And I was recalling myself that he had at some time started to say to me things like, you shouldn't wear any makeup.
One of the lingering questions Peter Singleton was eager to establish: how did the Bargo Hotel become a focal point in Rachelle's murder? We know her car was parked there by somebody else. There were no confirmed sightings of Rachelle at the pub that night. So what was her car doing there? Who was this mystery person she was supposedly planning to meet? Or what if There was never any meeting at the Bargo Hotel, and it was all part of her killer's plan.
Did he say anything about overhearing Rachelle going to meet someone at the Bargo pub?
Yes, he did. That was, I think, I'm not sure when he told me this, whether it was the day before or that day. But I know he told me he got away from work later on that Thursday than he expected to go shopping. I don't know what kind of trouble they'd had at work, but they got kept late. Kevin had told her she couldn't leave until she finished something, and they had an argument. He told me that she said she was going to meet somebody at the Bargo pub and that he made her complete whatever work was requested before she went to that meeting. She got really annoyed with him, and he said she snapped back at him and said, "Excuse me, will I just say it?"
We've heard worse.
She said, "Oh, that's great. Now I can't wash my fucking hair." I remember that distinctly. So he was annoyed that she was going off to meet someone. They'd had this argument, and he had made her stay back to do this work, whatever it was, before she went to meet the person. I'm not sure when he told me that, whether it was that night or the day after.
On the night Rachelle was murdered, Kevin called Alice twice. Once at 6:38 p.m. and exactly an hour later again at 7:38 p.m.
As of today, how many calls do you recall having with Kevin Correll that night after you got home?
I think I spoke to him twice. I'm not 100% sure now. Without reading through my statement, I might have rung to ask whether he'd got the present or just to speak with him. But I do recall that later that night, he rang me to ask if he could come over, which seemed a bit odd because he'd made such a deal about not seeing me on that Thursday night. It was late-ish for me. I'm not sure what time it was, but I wouldn't have considered letting him come over at that point because I'd already planned what I was doing for the evening. So it was an unusual request, I thought.
What was his tone like in that phone call?
It was I wondered why. I can't recall his tone exactly, but I do remember thinking, why does he all of a sudden want to come over? So there would have been a sense of, I actually thought, what's wrong? That was my feeling. I don't remember his tone, but I remember thinking, what's up that you'd even make that request? He knew I was an early-to-bed person, and after making such a fuss about not getting together on that Thursday, why would he call at, say, 7:45 and ask to come over? I found that unusual too, and I think I was probably left with a bit of a question, like, well, that was odd, or why? He said something like he just wanted to see me, but that didn't seem right either. So I was left with a bit of a question as to why I got that call. I asked him what he was doing, and he said he was at home. So that was my other reason for thinking that he was at home when that phone call was made, and that he said he was just going to have pizza and have an early night. So, which was a regular behaviour for him, like that's what he did. I don't think he cooked a lot for himself. So he would have gone and got a pizza and taken it back to the unit to eat. So my understanding that night was that he was having pizza at home and having an early night.
Remember, Kevin told detectives in his police interview a very different food order from a takeaway shop in Tamworth. Here is an actor voicing his statement.
Fish cake, battered sav, a bag of chips and a Coke.
Well, yeah. I love fish and chips. Once I'll change that and get a fish cake and a battered sav and chips. I've done it twice this week.
Did you say that you thought there might have been another phone call with Kevin that night?
I don't know whether it was that night or the next day, but I had another phone call from him. And the next time I spoke to him, he rang me and he was very upset and totally out of character. I don't think I'd ever heard that side of him. Remorseful. He said things like, I just want to tell you how sorry I am, and I wanted to tell you I am so sorry for treating you so badly. I remember thinking, what is this about now? Where did this come from? Because we hadn't argued, and I was left wondering what the hell had happened because he sounded like someone had died or something. And one of my things is I talk a lot with my girlfriends, and I remember saying with one, well, we all knew he was a bit of a creep in a sense, but I was still seeing him. But the relationship had finished, so he knew that, and then I get these phone calls, and I said, what do you think this one's about? Why would you suddenly ring me out of the blue and start apologising? So he was so upset, you know. He'd done, like, it was a very emotional phone call that he'd made, and it was left a bit flat on me because I didn't know where it was coming from and what it was about. And I said to a girlfriend, you know, this sounds awful, but I actually laughed. I thought it was kind of funny, thinking, what's going on? What's he done this time? What the hell was that about? It sounded like somebody died or he got jilted by a girlfriend or something. And at that point in that relationship, I was not surprised if there were other people. That's the conclusion we drew, just being totally hypothetical. And we had a laugh because we thought, what's the game now? Or what's all that about?
How was Kevin's mood on the Saturday?
I don't really recall. There's nothing more serious, more sensible, even cool, like on that Saturday, because he was around me. He was being normal to my normality. He seemed to change to who he was with. After the phone call...
Was he acting?
I think he always acted.
After the phone call, you were going to say?
Later in the day, I don't recall when, either Rachelle's father or Kevin rang and they spoke.
Did you hear any of the conversation?
He would have been near me, but not right near me. I didn't hear the conversation, but I remember Kevin just saying, I don't know where she is. And I remember feeling at that point, feeling concerned that, well, firstly, I had the next question, which was like, why is her father ringing you? Why would you know where your work... I don't know where my work colleagues are on the weekend. I didn't understand that. Nothing much more was said about it, and then I did think that it must be really... something must be wrong because, you know, her father must have rung you for a reason, like extenuating circumstances, to go out of his way and ring Kevin. So I was concerned for Rachelle. I didn't know Rachelle, but I think he might have then moved into worry mode, which again, I say that terribly, but I don't think that was real.
Most of the staff at Camden Holden were informed on the Sunday of the June long weekend that Rachelle's body had been found, and police were treating her death as a murder. Peter Singleton's now asking Alice what Kevin's mood was like the next day, the Monday. It was a public holiday.
Yeah, agitated. And, you know, like this, and needed to get in the car and drive, and I was just trying to accommodate, knowing that this was a very bizarre situation. And so then we drove from my place to Bargo from memory, and, you know, he said that's where it had happened. I think this is the day he did that. And I remember he went across the bridge and drove past the hotel where she was last seen, and then chucked a U-turn. There's a car park there. Looked in the car park and then continued down.
When you say he looked in the car park, did he get out of the vehicle?
Well, yeah, kind of like looking where it had happened, you know, looking at the place, looking at the...
Did you know at the time that the car park had any significance?
He told me that she'd gone missing and that her car was there, had been left there. I think this was on that day. I'm not sure which bridge we came back across. There's 2 bridges in Bargo. But we drove up like a little way and I said, why are we driving up here? And he said, she used to live here, like in Bargo. And I said, oh, like, I was then thinking, like, how come you know where she lives? Or why do you know where she lives? And he said, I said, does she live here or in this area? And he said, oh, she lived somewhere here on land, and left it at that. He was going south and then said he needed to go to Campbelltown to the dealership there.
I'm David Simons. I was the used car manager at Campbelltown with the Paul Wakeling Group at the time of Rachelle Childs' murder.
When did you first learn about Rachelle's death?
It would have been the Monday of the long weekend. I had a phone call to say that something had happened or she'd been found.
Kevin became increasingly upset and he asked, you know, if we could... He wanted to go to Campbelltown. So he went out to the expressway, turned left onto the expressway, drove through to Campbelltown Holden.
And then later in the day, or later that morning, Kevin turned up at the car dealership at Campbelltown and basically told me what he thought had happened, or told me that she'd been found.
And a lot of the people there were working, and I didn't feel it was my place to get out of the car.
Yeah, there was a lady in the car with him, which I thought was his wife, but I'm really not 100%.
I don't know whether he was crying, but he was really grieved at the dealership in Campbelltown. It was sudden when he got out of the car.
How would you describe Kevin's emotional state when you were talking to him at Campbelltown?
Yeah, very emotional. There's a lot of tears and blubbering and shaking. So, yeah, that seemed like he was quite upset.
Did you do a formal statement with police at the time?
I did.
And what memories do you have of that statement? What stands out to you in your memory now, thinking back?
The only thing that stands out a lot to me is where he came up with that statement, or the assumption that the rebels were involved. It just seemed like a long-winded draw and something for no reason to bring that up to me at the time. I don't know.
What sort of a car salesman was he?
Very old school. I always thought he was a bit shifty, but that's a personal thing. I had no experience of it myself. You know, he pumped himself up a lot about how good he was and what he'd done, but the figures didn't show what he was pumping up.
In the used car industry at the time, what was the dynamic of a typical mentor and mentee relationship?
Well, you had to try and impart your knowledge onto whoever you were training to teach them how the business worked, what to do, how to greet people, meet people, how to be social with your client, and how to sell a product.
And from what you saw of Kevin and Rachelle's relationship, is that what you would say was typical?
It seemed a bit, it seemed a different relationship to what you'd have if it was a salesman, not a saleswoman that was involved. They seemed a bit too close for what the situation was, if that makes sense.
Have you ever reflected on that, and what do you make of it now upon reflection?
Yeah, I've thought about it. It appeared that she was, when I saw him out at the auctions, that it looked like she was following him around like a little puppy, and he was sort of, I don't know whether you say showing her off, but letting everyone know that she was there with him.
How often would you see Kevin at the auctions, and would he ever be trying to buy a Walkinshaw? Is that something that would have been within his capacity as a used car manager?
Well, as the used car manager, he had the capabilities to buy any vehicle that he deemed necessary for the dealership. So, yeah, that's possible. I never saw him trying to buy a Walkinshaw, but...
Have you ever heard that he had promised Rachelle a Walkinshaw for the June long weekend?
No, I definitely hadn't heard that. I heard that after the fact, but not prior to, or, that didn't come up in conversation with me that had been promised, which would seem strange that you would give a young girl like that sort of vehicle for a weekend holiday car.
Why would that be strange?
Well, insurance for a start. It's a very expensive motor car, high-powered unit, and it's not something normally you wouldn't even give that to one of your salesmen to drive for a weekend.
So you believe it's not something that would typically happen, that a young saleswoman would be promised a Walkinshaw for a weekend?
Definitely not. Whether it was saleswoman or salesman, it wouldn't matter.
Kevin Correll strenuously denies any involvement in Rachelle's murder and has never been charged. He has willingly participated in 3 records of interview with police and provided his DNA to investigators. A coroner presiding over Rachelle's inquest made an open finding. The inquest was picking apart evidence of who said what during the frantic search for Rachelle. You heard Alice give evidence about Kevin's reaction when Rachelle's father, Graham, reached out to him, desperate to find her. Here's part of what Graham told the coroner's court when he was questioned about his efforts to find Rachelle on the Saturday when she was still missing. This is not his voice.
I wonder whether there are any particular parts of the inquiries you were making that Saturday that stand out as more significant or more remembered.
There were 2 calls that I made. One that we'd heard that Rachelle potentially could have gone to a rebels party on the Thursday night, which I couldn't possibly believe that would be the case, given Rachelle's personality, particularly by herself. But there were 2 contacts made. The first one was to check the veracity of the Bargo, to contact the Bargo Hotel. So I contacted Kevin and rang Kevin and spoke to him about Rachelle. When did you last see her? Where was she going? Did you know where she was going? Who she was going to see? you've got to remember, she would have confided in you because we've drilled Fiona. Now, the last person that we thought had seen Rachelle would have been Fiona, but later she was the receptionist, so that wouldn't have been. And the last person would have been either Correll or a salesperson that worked there. It was Correll that said she was going. She told me she was going to, he did. He told me she was going to the Bargo Hotel, and that's all he knew. And it's I remember the phone call because he was not offhanded, but there was no if it was someone in my staff, or maybe it's me. If it's someone in my staff had disappeared, I would have gone out of my way, particularly when it's a father calling another father. You would have had a sense of, look, is there anything I can do to help? Do you want me to come out? Look, I'll make some phone calls around. I'll talk to all my staff. I'll find out. I would do lots of things. But it wasn't. It was as if, use the word cold. That's probably what I would say. It was matter of fact. Look, don't know what she was doing. All I knew is she was going to the Bargo Hotel, and that's all I know. And I saw her at 5:30 on Friday when she left.
That was the first of, I think you said 2?
That was the first.
Standout phone calls.
The second one was, we heard the name Sash, and Sash had a car sales yard at Bargo, and Rachelle knew him through the contacts, and also Shane had sold a car to him, but they also had dealings as they sold and bought cars from one another. So I rang Sash, and my more concern was that he was the head of a chapter, and I'd inquired at the Bargo Hotel, had there been a rebels party on the Thursday night? The licensee had told me there wasn't one, but I just wanted to double check. So there didn't seem to be a rebels party, but I wanted to talk to Sash if he knew whether Rachelle had any plans or anything. He said, look, there was no party. We did not have a party. There was nothing. It's winter. Nothing was on. The place was closed up. It wasn't happening. He said, look, I'm really sorry. I'm a father as well. Is there anything I can do for you? I said, well, you could talk to your friends if you can. He said, give me a number, and I gave him my number. He took my number. He said, if I find anything, I'll call you. And to me, they were 2 telephone calls that stood out. One, an acquaintance who I'd never met and was there, who would go out of their way, and one who was a mentor, coach, father figure in some way, who wouldn't go out of their way.
How could such a personal person do such a thing to a beautiful child?
There were 2 daughters, but I think Dad actually got sort of like a son and a daughter because she was very much a tomboy.
Hello, folks.
Hello. Do it again.
What was he like as a dad?
Very much a protector. He was very funny as well, and also very good at sport. He was our hero, really. He was really kind, really giving. He was a mentor to so many people, and he really looked after us.
Are you finished? Stop! You trying to come in?
He used to call Rachelle Maggot and me Wart. But he'd give you like the biggest bear hugs, like that. The Childs all have these giant hands, and they would, whenever they cuddle you, it's like literally getting a hug from a bear. Yeah, he was beautiful. He was a good guy.
Door for body. Michelle's going.
The only one you don't say answers the door.
Yeah. Hi.
Graham passed away during the pandemic after a battle with brain cancer. He's buried right beside his precious daughter, Rachelle.
Vibrant, smart guy, and there's nothing he could do.
He lost speech because he had brain tumour, so that was really hard to watch him struggle with words. It was hard, it was long, and it was so unfair.
Very hard for him. He was stoic, though. He was, he didn't complain really at all. Amazing. Like his daughter.
I am a bit like Dad, very much like Dad's side of the family. Injustice just doesn't sort of sit well, and sitting idly doesn't sit well either. Dad was always the person pushing. I think we just kind of accepted what the police did, that was it. There wasn't really anything else to be done. You know, the police have stopped, or there's no other avenues to go down, so we just kind of swallowed that and accepted it.
I think it's one of the last throws of the dice, and then following this, you know, it'll be luck.
He was a businessman, he was a consultant, loves his daughter so much and his wife, and Graham wasn't unhinged. He was an intelligent man, very passionate, and I have no problem with parents who are unhinged after their child's been killed. No problem at all. But he was always rational, always sensible.
But I kind of feel a sense of responsibility now that Dad's passed away. I think that he would have backed me 100% if he was here too. We didn't talk about the case a lot, but we talked about Rachelle all the time.
Honestly, like a second family to me from the day I was born. I loved their family dynamic. I loved to just sit in their home, you know, and watch TV with them. They were a beautifully tight, gorgeous family, you know, and the love in that household, I just felt so welcomed all the time. At one stage, they gave me an adoption certificate to adopt them into their family, which was just beautiful.
How tough was it when Graham passed?
Yeah, just horrible, because it was during COVID. So I couldn't even be there, you know, watching over a screen, which was, yeah. But just, I think the mourning then of him, of what he went through, of his passing, but then him not getting that resolve, that answer, you know, for his daughter, then you just think to yourself, for fuck's sake, like how many cards are going to get dealt to Kristy and Anne?
Rachelle's dad was fed a lot of lies about the homicide squad, didn't care or weren't involved. That covered up the fact that they withdrew our support and what we're meant to do on the case, in fact, lead the investigation. That was never told to the family. I regret that I couldn't do that, but under our policy, I wasn't allowed to tell them. You know, I'd love to let them know. And sadly, Graham's passed since then. And Graham went around with some other dads at the Homicide Victim Support Group doing a great job advocating for the solving of these cases. And Graham was just fed lies about it. And the reality is, the truth of it is, as they say in Winston Churchill, surrounded by a bodyguard of lies.
Are there any memories of Graham from the inquest?
Oh yes, he gave me a gift of a frangipani scented candle to thank me, and the frangipani was Rachelle's favourite flower. And I've still got it. And one day when this case is solved, I will light that candle for Rachelle.
The worst thing you could say to any individual is, you're a murderer and you killed my daughter, and I don't think I would ever say that to anyone, and that's for the courts to decide.
It would be amazing to actually have the answers. We may never know who or why. Just a matter of time, a bit more time.
I remember saying to Dad, because Dad couldn't communicate towards the end of his life, and I remember one of the last things I said to him was, I'll find him. So I promised Dad, so yeah, time to hump up.
We love our daughter very much, and we'll always will. And if anyone's got any knowledge, you know, to help us in our pain, then come forward.
Coming soon on Dear Rachelle.
I do love my father. I hate what he's done. My name is Jazz, and Kevin Correll is my father. was 17 and this has chased me my entire adult life. I gave him those years and I feel a lot of guilt and shame. Crossing him could be dangerous for people, but I think my initial instinct when hearing that Rachelle had been murdered was that it was my father. God, I wish I had a normal fucking dad.
Dear Rachelle is a multimedia production from True Crime Australia. If you want to be one of the first to find out what happens next, go to dearrachelle.com.au. That's where eligible Digital News Corp Australia subscribers get early access to podcast episodes and breaking news in our live investigation. And you will also find exclusive videos, interactive evidence, feature articles and more. That's dearrachelle.com.au. If you have any tips or confidential information to share with me, Ashlea Hansen, please send an email to dearrachelle@news.com.au. Our supervising producer and audio editor is Reese Gunter. Rachel Fountain is executive producer and audio director. Our executive editor is Sarah Blake. Our senior journalist is Patrick Carline. Video editors are Gillian McNally, Owen Yang and Stephen Woods. Picture editors are Jeff Darmanin and Kristy Miller. Senior camera operators are Daniel Andrews and Oscar Vieira, with sound design by Martin Peralta. Thanks also to Greg Thompson, Eleni Pineras, Shoba Rayo, Faye Gould, Vanessa Graham, Hayley Goddard, Stephen Grice, Charlotte Karp, Tina Coggins and Harry Hughes. Special thanks to the Daily Telegraph editor Ben English. And Dear Rachelle would not be possible without the help and unwavering support of Kristy and Anne Childs, Mindy Wicks, Damian Loone and Rachelle's friends. This podcast series is hosted and investigated by me, Ashlea Hansen.